Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite-Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Elite Team Strategist, helping and preparing businesses to navigate culture, complexity, and change. We are back for another real conversation from the C-Suite, and unfortunately, it is our last and final conversation with Mr. Todd Levinson and Mr. Andre Thomas of Healing Race podcast. Gentlemen, I'm so excited to have you back. We have had some real conversations from the C-suite during our series, and I'm very grateful for the candor that you have brought to the conversation. At this time, in our last of our series, I want to talk about how you in your work create spaces and approaches where people feel free to tell you what they really think, why that's important, and how we can do it safely. I think earlier in one of our conversations, we talked about the importance of psychological safety. So walk us through what that would look like for you. And the reason I'm asking this question is I'm hoping that someone out in our community would actually want to engage with you to maybe facilitate a discussion with their folks. So let's talk about what that might look like.
Yeah, great. So we have basically a 5-habit approach to this. 1 is curiosity, 2 is respect. And respect means having respect for the person and respect for them to have the views and experiences that they have. 3 is empathy. And empathy means being able to experience as best as you can, to put yourself in the shoes of another person and really experience their experience and their point of view until you get it. Like you understand, I see where they might be coming from, even if I come from somewhere different. 4 is to be willing to challenge, because if you're going to have a real conversation, you have to be willing to ask tough questions, but you've set the groundwork to be able to do that. And lastly, number 5 is humility, to know, as we shared in our last episode, that we don't know everything, right? I have the experience that I've had. Andre's had the experiences that he's had. And it's in engaging in sharing that experience and the views that have come from it that we widen the number of experiences that we understand. And so having a little humility that whatever has brought you to the point of viewing and valuing what you view and value, that maybe there are other experiences that might reshape that, expand that in some way. So those are the 5 habits to do that. And I think the best one for people to kind of start with is the curiosity piece. But I don't mean just go around asking people questions. I mean, ask tough questions, meaning ask questions where you typically have reacted. So if you feel that you tend to have a moralizing, emotionally reactive response, in those situations, test yourself to ask.
May I add something to that?
Just give me just 1 second, because for the benefit of the community, I want to repeat what these 5 habits are: curiosity, respect, empathy, challenging with respect, of course, and humility. And Andre, just give me a second, because I wanted to come to you and ask you a question. When Todd talked about empathy and really experiencing what someone else's experience has been, we've all heard walk in someone else's shoes, right? But you can't necessarily do that. I have heard it put that if you walk alongside me and see what I experience, you'll get an idea of it, because no one can. Todd will never, as close as you all are, he will never know what it's like to be a Black gay man. He just won't. So to say, walk in someone else's shoes, that doesn't work. But what works for you, Andre? I'm really interested to know.
Sure. For me, I think what works is both parties being very open. So the thing I wanted to add is to make sure that you do all these things and you're mindful of your tone, because as you are pursuing those 5 steps, we do not want either party to feel objectified. Like if, let's say I went to Todd and say, so tell me, oh my God, you have so much privilege. Like, you really just don't care about humanity, right? That's a rude thing to say to a white person and a huge presumption to make. So when people are open about their background, when people are willing to suspend judgment, and I think that's what works for me. Part of the, I would say, practical steps, like you said, we can't ever walk in another person's shoes, but we can walk along. One way to walk along is to say, tell me more about that, which is something I struggle to do because I'm a very easily triggered person. And so if I lean into the space of tell me more about that, then I'll get to know that person's perception. They could be thinking something that's maybe very similar to me. And I would say, if you ever want to do, that kind of work, when the opportunity arises, as Todd stated, in a place where you've normally had a reaction, or if you felt something in your gut, some tension that you've held physically or psychologically, just relax and ask the person, tell me more about that. And as you get curious, then I think the other parts of the other steps in our plan naturally flow.
You mentioned triggers, and in one of my previous podcasts with a different guest, we talked about the importance of being very self-aware, knowing our own triggers, and recognizing when we get triggered, and the fact that it's okay to pause the conversation and step back and say, I think I want to pick this up at another time, versus trying to go on and you're feeling some kind of way on the inside. So with that question, I want to ask this of either one of you or both of you: how much is too much? So we talk about having real conversations. We talk about people talking about what they really think. We talk about people being in a space where it's safe to challenge respectfully. But how much is too much? Who wants to take it first?
Yeah, I can go. I think for me, the question is more, when is appropriate for more? When you're choosing to be vulnerable and talk about tough issues, you may hit some obstacles, as you said, right? You may hit a point in time when you need to pause in the conversation. And we've had guests do that before. It's a time to reflect and think about, what needs to happen in order for the conversation to continue to move forward. Like I could imagine no end to the conversation with Andre, or honestly, any of our guests, to be honest. It's just a matter of how it unfolds over time. We're not saying to tell your whole life story and open up all of your secrets in the first conversation, but test the boundary a little bit, right? Let someone earn your trust, the trust to be able to share more and hear more. And what you'll find is that over time, you can share more and they will share more. And so for me, I see it more as a process that opens up over time and enables one to talk about more and more difficult or different topics, challenging topics, and to open up more of their selves and to feel a greater closeness.
Andre, I think in our first conversation, you'd mentioned the fact that Todd had earned the right to ask you certain questions.
Yes.
What does that look like for you?
It's interesting. So I would give the analogy of almost like a puppy, since I'm currently in a household with a puppy. And I have never owned a dog in my adult life. And so my friend, whose home I'm in, had to tell me how to read her behavior, because I was like, I'm scared she's going to bite me. And she's like, that. And the puppy took a certain stance where she got on her back and presented me her belly. And my friend said, you see that? That's a sign of vulnerability. That means she feels no threat. She's allowing you access to her belly, which is the most vulnerable part of her physiological structure. And I said, oh, and I said, you can either give a belly rub or not. But to make this analogy, I'll bring it home. I, through my interactions with her, established trust before she did that. And following this plan that Todd has laid out and that we've created in Healing Race, gives a pathway to trust. And similar into my puppy analogy, when that trust is there, then they're at ease. I mean, this is, my friend raises pit bulls. And so I had some concern.
Yeah.
And I was serious. And I was like, well, I've had concerns. They said, suspend those concerns. Because I came in judging the dogs, like, suspend those concerns. This is how you read the behavior. And as she trusts you, she'll calm down. And the ultimate sign of that calming down was presenting me her belly, meaning I feel so safe with you. Yeah. I'll show you my most vulnerable part. Yeah. So to me, that's how you do it, is just be a person who is an advocate for safety. Psychological safety is something that I think all sentient beings need, including dogs, right? And what I do is with, the puppy here in the environment, is I give her the reassurance that she needs. And I do it in a loving manner. meaning I see you. And then she calms down. There's no need to yell at her. There's no need to yell at your next human being. There is enough love and compassion and empathy in this world for me to give you emotionally what you need, and still reserve some for myself. And I feel that Todd accomplished that. So to use the analogy, I showed him my belly.
That is so, wow, that is profound. And I love how you just said, you have enough grace and compassion for yourself and to share with other human beings. I think that's where it starts. That's the foundation of good, healthy conversations. And to wrap this up, community, I want to leave you with some practical applications. There are times when I will present you with a 30-day action plan. Take a nugget from the conversation and just decide one action that you're going to carry forward for 30 days. What are you going to stop doing, start doing, do more of, or do less of to advance the new knowledge that you just got out of this podcast? So here's what I'm going to ask you. Andre, I'm going to come to you first. Offer something that people can start or stop to have a conversation that's going to be insightful. And Todd, you share with us what someone can do more of or less of to have conversations that can be insightful.
Shall I go first?
Please.
I will just tell the world the same process as me. I would say, number one, try to suspend judgment. Try not to judge when you hear something that may require some action from you, or some reaction.
So we want to start to suspend judgment.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. What can we stop doing?
Start suspending judgment.
Okay.
And stop giving in to your trigger. So the trigger and community is taking therapy for me to get to this. So please know this was bought and paid for advice. So just because a trigger comes up, you have enough self-control to not have to react to it. You can let it come up and then just let it pass.
And did you say stop succumbing to your triggers?
Yes, that's great to put it. Stop succumbing to your triggers.
Okay. So community, start suspending judgment and stop succumbing to your triggers. That's from Professor Andre. Professor Todd, what do you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, in terms of doing more, what I would say is give people a way to find their ways into your shoes or to walk alongside you. Andre did a great job early on when the issue of feeling fear for his physical safety as a Black man came up in a follow-up conversation to ask me, have there been any times in your life when you felt physically unsafe? And it became a bridge for me to share sometimes that I was actually physically unsafe. And for me to then take the leap from there and say, so what I hear you saying is that's the kind of feeling you have on a regular basis as you walk around, right? He gave me a way to connect with his experience. And yes, I will never be a Black gay man in America, but by him asking that question, it became a bridge for me to understand what that experience might be like. So that's what I would say more of. Less of what I would say is talking or reacting with emotion when someone shares a hard truth with you. That is when they're showing their belly, to use Andre's metaphor. They're testing you in some ways, and maybe not consciously, or maybe they're just testing, maybe they're just sharing, but it is a test. And you either pass that test by holding back on that initial response and just listening and ask a follow-up question if need be, right? That's the belly rub. The belly rub is saying, okay, I hear your hard truth. Okay, I'm taking it. Let me know more. Let me hear it out. Let me hear it out fully and let me know more about it rather than just talking in response or over it. So a little bit less of that reaction and talking when you're hearing hard truths, and a little more listening and asking.
And we completely recognize, community, that to listen to a hard truth is called a hard truth for a reason. And so when we're having these conversations, it's not enough to just be the facilitator and to extend grace. As a participant, we also need to extend grace, not only to ourselves when we realize we're being triggered, but to others when they're trying to explain where they're coming from. Our lived experiences are just as different as the people who have them. And so, wow, Andre and Todd, I really want to.
This is what it's like to be a guest on our show.
But as the community knows, this is what it's like just to be me. I get so touched and so moved that I never know when this is going to happen. And this was an incredible, real conversation from the C-suite. I want to thank you both for sharing your lived experiences, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your amazing dynamic. It's just entertaining and engaging and educational all at the same time. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about your podcast, The Healing Race Show?
Well, they can find us on YouTube. They can find us on all sorts of, streaming, audio streaming. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts. They can also email us either at Todd@healingraceshow.com or Andre@healingraceshow.com. And we'd love to engage with you. Those are the ways to connect with us.
Thank you so much. Final nugget of thought that either one of you wants to leave with the community.
Be willing to be vulnerable, as Dr. Anita just was in your reaction, right? And we, even in our first conversation, had moments like that. And they connect you with people. They open up a space to really get to know people. They are some of the most cherished moments that you have in life, and what builds real strong relationships, regardless of your background, the color of your skin, is those vulnerable moments. And so be willing to have them because it matters in personal lives, but it also matters in the professional world. When you have trust, when you have a team that has trust, that trust moves into their work. They don't have that voice in their head that we talked about earlier, that Andre talked, the self-consciousness or wondering. They can put it out on the table, and then they can be amazing team members together. And so it's a way of building trust.
Yeah. Andre, would you like the final word, sir?
Just to say, transformation is worth it. So you'll like who you are on the other side of this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Transformation is worth a community, and you will like who you are on the other side of it. Even if you like who you are now, you're going to like who you are even better. Well, with that being said, I just feel extremely moved, community. I hope you do too. I hope out of all of the conversations that we've had that you'll go back and listen to this one. This one sums up everything that we were trying to bring to you in terms of having conversations that really can heal the race. And with that, please share this with your network. Post it with your own comments. Our community is a learning community, and I want to know what you think. And please continue to stay in the flow with me. Follow, like, and overshare any podcast that helps you reframe hot topic conversations from difficult to different. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.